My name is Joe Renzulli, and I'm the director of the NEAG Center for Creativity, Gifted Education, and Talent Development at the University of Connecticut. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about probably what is the most controversial topic that exists in the field of giftedness and talent development, and that is, what in the heck is giftedness after all? In the 1970s, I began to question what was the tradition at that time, in which case most people viewed giftedness and IQ as synonymous. One of the things I've been fond of doing since I was a child is reading biographies and about famous people. And one of the things that I found is that not everybody that achieved fame or recognition or notoriety in a particular field was necessarily the sharpest kid in the class, the kid with the highest scores. And so I wrote an article summarizing a lot of this work called What Makes Giftedness? Re-examining a Definition. And I judiciously submitted it to the 3 gifted education journals that were available at the time, and they all unceremoniously rejected it. So on the advice of a good friend of mine, Dr. Paul Torrance, I submitted it to a general education journal, the Cap'n, and it was published and got legs, and now I say with no small amount of modesty that it's the most widely cited article in the field. And I like this because there was criticism of it. And in fact, one person wrote an article called Renzulliitis, a National Disease in Gifted Education, because I was arguing against IQ being the be-all and end-all of what makes giftedness. In my research over the years, what I have concluded and reported in that article is that gifted behaviors, I like to use the word as an adjective, gifted behaviors are the result of an interaction of 3 clusters of traits, those clusters being above average ability, task commitment, and creativity. And when I talk about above average ability, I'm not just talking about academic abilities. There are abilities in many areas other than what is typically measured on an achievement test, which is math and language arts or reading skills. We don't care what Einstein's art scores were or what Picasso's math scores were. We recognize them for the work that they did. We don't care what Martin Luther King's grade point average was and the remarkable things that he did in the area of leadership and civil rights and making remarkable changes in the culture of our country. So when I talk about above average ability, I'm not talking just about traditionally measured academic abilities. The second ring, task commitment, should be viewed as a refined or focused form of motivation, what a lot of people today are talking about as grit or perseverance. Motivation in psychology is a general concept. You're motivated to be a good teacher or parent or member of your church. Task commitment draws upon the same source of energy, but it's energy focused into something very, very specific, thus the word task being part of the definition. The third area, creativity, has been defined. Entire books have been written on the definition of creativity. I look at it as the ability to raise questions that other people haven't raised, to explore and be playful with thoughts and ideas, and to be very experimental in trying out different kinds of things. Now, no single one of these clusters makes giftedness, and even if you have all 3, if they're not interacting with one another, then gifted behaviors don't emerge. And so, as you can see in the diagram, is the overlap between and among the 3 clusters of traits that produce what I call gifted behaviors. Now, there's something also very interesting about these 3 clusters. Whereas above average ability tends to remain constant over time in a particular area or topic or subject, the other two traits are not always present nor absent. That is, if you tell me your math scores in third grade, I can tell you your fifth, seventh, and ninth grade math scores. That's why achievement tests have what we call reliability. Creativity and task commitment, on the other hand, come and go with various circumstances, number one. And number two, they tend to feed upon one another. You get a creative idea, and I'm sure all of you have had ideas for an invention or a book or a poem, and unless you have the task commitment, you probably didn't follow through on that idea. And it could also work in the other way around. You could be really committed to do something. By God, we have to do something about bullying in school. And that may give rise to some creative approaches to dealing with the bullying problem. So it's very important that in any kind of educational program, especially one that serves high potential, talented kids, we actually are going to create creativity and create task commitment in areas that they may have a particular interest. Interest is the key to